While taking the first look at the body, I noticed that some of the panel lines are really not all that deep. Some are better than others, but pretty much all of them need a little bit of attention and some need a bit more. So just to start off with a couple, scribing them out, making them a little bit deeper so they don't disappear after a couple coats of paint. For the rounder, or in this case oval panel lines, I'm using a needle engraving blade that is a lot easier to maneuver around those round corners and a lot easier to use than one of those straight panel line scribers for the rest of the panel lines. With this body being made out of resin and the rest of the kit as well, it is a bit harder of a material than plastic, so I'm using a bit coarser of a grit sandpaper, or in this case sanding sponge, to sand it up and make it nice and rough for all of the primer and paints to stick to it properly, and also remove some slight imperfections that might be there here and there. The primer I'm using is 1K Gray Primer from Splash. It is their light gray version, as I'm going over it with a lighter color. That will make it a lot easier for that color to cover. This stuff works great on metal, resin, and plastic and dries super nice and smooth if applied properly. The first coat has been applied, so I let it sit and cure for about 5 minutes and then moved on to the second and final coat. I gave the primer a couple of hours to cure before applying the color. The color that I chose is Streetblisters Porsche Miami Blue, a nice fresh color that I think really suits this kind of GT3 and makes it pop a lot more than just a standard gray or black that you see a lot. Usually after applying the primer and letting it cure for a bit, you could sand it to make it nice and smooth. In this case, the primer laid down really well and didn't really need it. Now you could still do it just to be sure and make it even smoother. It doesn't hurt, but it just requires a little bit more work. So in the meantime, I've started painting all of those smaller pieces like the mirrors and also door handles. The spoiler has been painted at the same time as well before moving on to the main body, starting on those hard to reach, easy to forget spots and then doing the rest. One thing I do want to make very clear, and sorry for repeating myself, but I feel like I have to, this body is made out of resin and not out of plastic, so the coats that I'm applying here are a bit heavier than I would on plastic. With these paints and the lacquer base they are, it is easy to apply it really thick and then having it eat into the plastic, creating a horrible finish. These resin and or metal bodies don't have that reaction with the paint, so you can apply it a lot thicker and have a nice quick smooth finish, and also have a better coverage faster as you're applying more paint. If you are painting a plastic kit, either use a 2K primer to seal it in properly, and then you can do pretty much the same thing as I'm doing here, or just be a lot more careful, give it more time to cure, and apply a lot thinner coats and a lot more coats. So the first coat is now on, and as you can see, this color covers incredibly fast and nice. So about 5 to 10 minutes later, and it's time to move on to the second, and in this case for this color, also final coat. This one is applied a lot heavier, as I just explained, and also because it is applied heavier, it covers really nice and also creates a super smooth finish for the clear coat to go on top of. But before that, we just need to set it aside to cure for a couple of hours and then apply a decal on the front and seal it all with some 2K gloss clear from Streetblisters. So the smaller separate pieces have now been covered, and I can move on to those hard to reach, easy to forget spots and the rest of the body as well. The first coat was applied relatively thin and not going for the super smooth finish straight away. I let that sit and cure for 5 to 10 minutes, added a little bit more thinners to the mixture of the clear coat, and applied the second coat. The second coat is a bit heavier than the first one, trying to smooth it all out and have a nice smooth finish to lay down. It still isn't perfect, so I decided to go for a third and final coat in the end, adding a bit more thinner again to the mixture just to make it flow out and level really nicely, and apply that third coat. With that now done, it is time to set it aside and let the clear coat cure for a couple of days before moving on to masking it off and painting all of the flat black areas. In the meantime, I will probably be moving on to the interior. I'm thinking of just going for a black interior with some accents here and there, but not going overboard, but I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below for the interior.